right. We are at a very important turning point. This is the last day of no pads. Tomorrow starts pads. And guys, the evaluations are now going to become more and more clear, higher value in everything we see going forward. It's not to say what we've seen before this is not valuable, but there's got to put a lot of rabbit ears because the game of football, in its heart, in its essence, in its foundation, is violence and contact, physicality. And without that, it's a different game. So come tomorrow, we're going to add pads. Scrimmages are going to be coming. Preseason games are going to be coming. And this is how we're going to get more and more evals. And the data points we're adding to the ones we've seen before have a little bit more value. So I'm going to go over the practice today and then understanding of what we've seen so far, how tomorrow with the pads is going to be affected by what we've seen in the past and how what we've seen in the past can change for better or worse based on the start of tomorrow with the pads that we're seeing, the contact with pads and the violence going forward. So there's a lot of good stuff that came out of today's reports, a whole host of people that put these reports out. I want to say thank you from the Omar Kellys to the Alfs to the Travis Wingfields, etc. I'm going to use a bunch of their reports because without them, this show ain't going down. So that's what we're going to cover today. A little side note before I get in there. I might be a little off today. My man Rocky, who I told you, has been with us for 14 years. We had to put him down yesterday, put him to sleep. It was a very hard decision. And I don't drink. I used to drink the whole time as an animal. My wife has been like Miss Pristine her whole life. But yesterday, it was a real rough day for the whole family. And my wife and I bought some something to drink. And man, next thing I know, it was like 9 o'clock at night. And she was passed out. Next thing, I drank a ton. I was very sad. But today, I'm back into it. But I'm a little, I guess, hungover. And we had big apple pie and ice cream to drown our sorrows. But Rocky's been with us forever. I had him before my first child, my oldest son, you can see here. And he was with us, and he was unbelievable, truly unbelievable. And so it's been a big chapter in our lives. I appreciate all that you guys, the prayers and the well wishes. If you were an animal lover, and if you weren't, he's special. My wife, she never grew up with animals. She liked them, but Rocky turned her into an animal lover. You should have seen over the last couple of weeks her getting up in the middle of the night, taking care of him, going out and carrying him out to go to the bathroom. He was a special creature. And so I want to say thank you for everything. I live in the mountains now, and I found this huge hill that was flat on top. We put him there and buried him there, overlooking this wonderful mountain range that constantly has clouds go by, and you can see the tops of the mountains like shark or whale fins or dolphin fins over as it passed through, and it overlooks the entire valley. And we said goodbye to him. I played some songs about fallen heroes, and so I want to say thank you, but I might be a little under today, but I will do my best. Anyway, guys, I appreciate all you do. Like, subscribes, comments, and views. Everything is so important, and I'm so grateful. So I give you a shout out and a shout out to Ace Per Head, because without the two of you, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. All right, so I'm going to go through the news, what happened today, and then dial it in on certain areas. Long is back. Long Jr. is back. And it was a leg thing. He's a huge piece to what we want to do here. And that was good news. Tanakana, I think I have to remember this guy's name. I think it's Tanakana. Made some nice catches, and people are saying he's starting to pop. You can only keep so many tight ends. It'll be interesting. If we keep those 4 tight ends, it's going to say a lot about us philosophically. So it'll be interesting to keep him going forward. Reason... I always find he's a young guy. He's got these cool names and stuff. I guess some people call me Ace or whatever. I like this guy a ton. I think he's very smart. He's a hard worker. And he said here, he says, I've said it all offseason. I'll say it again. Grayson Murphy is making the 53. I didn't know anything about this guy. I just figured he wasn't going to make it. He's been doing pretty good in pre-pads. When the pads come on, if he's getting reports he's seen, I think Reason will be a profit on this. So keep your eyes on that. We had a run-heavy day, and they're trying to work on this run game. But run-heavy without pads is it's a totally different animal. So, but it's good that we're seeing that, and I think McDaniel understands he's got to have to run the football, and that is good news. And then Cam Smith. A lot of people are high on him. He's very small, thin-wise. He's had lots of injuries this year. And sadly, he had an injury this year. He's noticeably limping off the field. It's not disastrous, I don't think. But it's not a good sign. There's no real reports of him having big success. He's a second-round pick. We'll see. Plenty of time for this kid to get involved. But it's a long set of data points for his injury history, and that's not good. Now, Kohu seemed to be on the outside, but he's having one heck of a camp. And this is going to be really interesting to see if he could push somebody to take that spot or if he's building his resume to trade for a pick. I mean, either way, this is good news, and he has been doing really well. So that's a great sign. And you can read here, he said, on Sunday, he made no excuses for his play. I just got in my own way, Kohu said. It would be easy to say it was defenders, it was the defense we were in, or we were running, or anything like that. But I think that I don't think that was the case. At the end of the day, whatever defense you call, you just have to go out there and execute. I feel like we started getting deeper into the season. I just started losing a little focus. I wasn't really just focused on the details and stuff like that. So that's one thing I'm going to focus on this year. And if you have to understand it, Fangio's system is all about the details. It's intellectually driven. It's cerebrally driven. And a lot of guys should be saying this. The Ramseys of the world should be saying this. I love that Kohu said this. It's the truth. It's fair. And it shows that, look, you might not like Fangio. You might think he should have, whatever. But this defense is derived on players making good decisions and getting the details right. And so this is really good news for Kohu. I think that he might not be the best guy for a highly detail-driven defense. Maybe he is. I don't know. But this guy I think he's going to be success somewhere, and he's going to bring us value somehow on the field or in trade. And that's great news. I really loved what he said. And in other news, we had Ramsey had bad back-to-back practices. He gave a bomb on Hill on Friday, then struggled to hang with Waddle for much of Sunday. One of the rare times Waddle didn't pull down a pass thrown his way. Sunday came on a pretty blatant defensive pass interference by Ramsey. No big deal. I mean, he's a vet. But it does show that we got some talent at the receiving group, and he does need now going forward to tighten this up. And so we'll see how it plays out. He's obviously going to do much better than this. And again, there's no pads, and we're not game planning, but I just want to put that out there. So Wilson dropped weight, running back Wilson, and that's good for the zone stretch. We'll see if he can maintain the physicality, but it's good. It's cost us about $1 million, I think, if we get rid of him. So we're going to have to kind of keep him. And so now I want to get into the offensive line and the line of scrimmage, because that's what this thing is all about. Now, this report, Liam Eichenberg had this is Omar Kelly. Most embarrassing one-on rep against a defensive lineman I've seen in years when Deshaun Hand stiff-armed him to the ground during their reps. Maybe Eichenberg slipped, but that was one play, brought flashbacks last year of Eichenberg versus Christian Wilkins, where the former Dolphin captain routinely dominated Eichenberg during the first 2 weeks of training camp, and it cost Eichenberg a starting role, possibly his confidence. Miami can't afford for Eichenberg to start losing his confidence again. Let's hope the offensive line issues get addressed when pads come on Monday, because so far during the first 4 practice sessions, they have been overwhelmed by Miami's defensive line. And these are practices where Anthony Weaver is not bringing exotic blitzes. In all fairness, the Butch Barry's unit, the offensive line, working without Tehran and Isaiah Wynn, 2 projected starters who are encased in bubble wrap because of their durability issues, and a couple of players across cross-training at different spots. But there hasn't been a single player whose performance in the first week has raised his hand, claiming one of the 2 vacant guard spots. Hopefully this unit struggling subsides, when the pads come, hopefully, and he's said twice. And so I'm going to get into in just a second the pads element. It changes things on both sides. Okay, so, but you have to understand this, you're moving guys around. Teron's a big miss. People who are telling you that Isaiah Wynn is a big deal, I'm not going to bash their evaluation, but I disagree very, very much, okay? It's not to say he's bad, but what you're seeing is this unit struggles with driving, drive blocks, and power. There's other things, but these are key weaknesses that are rising and popping up. They've popped up for years and they're popping up now. And Isaiah Wynn struggles with that. So I do think he's an upgrade in certain areas, but the bubble wrap thing is kind of concerning when your whole left side of starters are injury concerns. And that means these guys are likely to go down either short or long term. So that, I just wanted to put that out there. Now, let's see. So Chop got around Paul twice. Paul's had some good points and he's had some struggles. I think this guy got potential. He's got some weaknesses to his game. They can be helped if he learns some to fix and adjust. Part of the adjustment is him improving in certain things, obviously, getting his experience, getting a better understanding of things, being able to drop his hips a little bit more, getting his footwork down, all that stuff. But the biggest part is that he's going to have clear strengths and he's going to have some clear weaknesses, weaker parts of his game that will never be strengths. And he's got to create a recipe of who he is as a player to offset his weaknesses and use his strengths to create his platform to project his success, if you understand what I'm saying. And that takes time. It's like if you ever played the old Mortal Kombat game, you got one guy, he's fast, but he can't take a shot. And you got the other guy who's gigantic and he's slow as beans. And you got to learn how to kind of shield that weakness and make that strength of yours drive your success. Neither one of them are perfect. Yeah, there's some guys that had the superpower. They were great on everything. But for the most part, each guy had a weakness and a strength. And when they matched up, you had to find ways to mitigate it and drive the victory. And that's what he's going to do. And I think in certain elements, the pads coming on is going to help him. It's also going to help the D-line a little bit. There's going to be little bonuses added to the skill sets. And when you pull all this together, you're going to start seeing more clear evaluations. But I do think the pads will help Paul a little bit. And I'll explain that in just a second. Now, Calais Campbell, he's said he's up to like 3-0 something. And Kelly said, man, he gets off the line slow now, 300 pounds, and he's old. He's 37, 38. But he's beating guys. When it's 11-on-11, all of a sudden you see him, he's not too good in the one-on-ones. But once you get to 11-on-11s, he's beating people. He drove Jackson back yesterday. Today he took Brewer and then almost ended up defeating Brewer to the point it was a deflection. And so this is a weakness that we're seeing as far as what this offensive line can handle. And Campbell is a guy, he's the kryptonite. And as you watch him and other guys like Hand, and they go against this unit, that kryptonite is revealing some of these flaws. It can change. Again, game planning, pads, getting the right combination, getting Teron back, all the stuff. But watch what happens with these guys. When we go into preseason, watch the players that are going against our offensive line. Study them out. If they have power, watch how that power is affecting our offensive line. It's going to be a huge key. It's not going to say we're going to do this, we suck or whatever, but you'll know if this unit is rising in its drive block and its ability to handle power and physicality. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So I want to get into pads, okay? Obviously, it's like, well, we're getting physical and there's going to be more hitting. And that's a kind of sort of nebulous thing. But I want to dial it in specifics in many, many ways. So when you don't have pads on, they got helmets. no shoulder pads. Most guys don't wear knee pads anymore, which is kind of crazy. So, maybe they'll put, rib cage pads on, or hip pads, thigh pads. It's all about shaving the stuff down and trying to be as quick as possible for most positions. But once you get those pads on, pads are not just defense. Guys use pads on the offense too, like to attack. Like, and even on defense, you're using your pads in different ways to attack. And if you don't have them on, you're not driving your shoulder in there. You're not going as 100% as you would when the pads come on, when the scrimmage comes, and then it gets stepped up in the preseason, gets stepped up even more in the regular season games, and then in critical games and in postseason games, it keeps going higher and higher. The violence, the ability to just wantonly throw your body around. But there's specifics on that. I guess it would be too much to go over in totality. But a lot of just basics. If you're a defensive lineman or a linebacker, and some guy's coming through the hole, the best way is get in there and get underneath them. When there's no pads on, it's hard to get your hands up. The hands slip off. When actually pads come on, it gets easier to control a player on both sides. Those pads become like reins on a horse. Whoever controls the other guy's pads is really getting dominance of the player. And then also on the defensive side, those shoulder pads, you'll come in and you'll drive your shoulder into the guy to stop him cold. You use your shoulder to get into a guy with these pads on. There's a lot of things you could do with your pads to attack. And if you're not doing it, it kind of is not showing you what you're really all about. So this whole puzzle we're seeing is going to change. But now as an offensive lineman, I don't want to get too much into it because people might get bored of that. But the equipment, if you're blocking, okay, and you're an offensive lineman, the pads on an opponent are target areas, okay? And just in one area, the shoulder pads. It comes down here, and there's plates on the shoulders and the chest. They're very dense, and the player's body is not as dense. And so when you're stabbing with that hand, you want to drive under and get under those pads and control a guy. You really can't do it because then you're going to be grabbing jersey. You're going to grab. You can't. But there's that control of holding onto the pads. But when you shoot your hand out and you stab and attack, hitting the body is soft. It slides and there's just not as much impact. It gets absorbed. But when you have that pad on, you pop it. That's why you hear that sound, pop. And then the kinetic energy drives through those pads and it gets more pop out of that. And so a guy like Paul, with these long arms and power, he's just not able to get the full impact. It's going to help him. It's also going to be a little harder in many ways, but he can get the hands on the guys on drive blocking in the run game. Even sometimes in the passing game, you can get up there and the guy tries to bull rush and you just lock under here and you're like this, as long as you're not going around the sides, although we got guys that do that too. But the stab and the pop doesn't have as much effect. And so this whole thing we're seeing is just not indicative of what's going to happen. And then even when we put the pads on, it's still not indicative, but it's better interpretation than what we've seen. And then again, when we go to the scrimmages, it gets notched up. And then the preseason, it gets really notched up and really, really close. And those one-on-one matchups are going to be interesting. And then the regular season game, as I said, and then the postseason. So this whole process, it increases in the violence, in the ability to commit your body, the physicality. Once the pads come on, you're seeing a more genuine interpretation. And so starting tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of good stuff. And nothing's going to be indicative, but man, we are getting close. I am so excited for tomorrow. I wish I could be at the practices. And again, thank all the people that are covering this because there's so much little bits of information that keep coming out. So I'm very excited. And a guy on the offensive line, because I'm the offensive line channel, is Jones, Robert Jones. He brings a unique talent to this offensive line that nobody else can bring, and that is physicality. He's 330 pounds. He's got some issues in his legs and his movement, but the power and the pop and the violence, I am very interested to see how he plays because he can help us out a ton. So that's it, guys. I appreciate everything. Get ready. It's really going to be a big day tomorrow. Super duper excited. Anyway, this is Curtis saying, thanks for stopping by. Be well. Go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.